Okay.
All right, so I guess we're getting started here with our webinar. So thank you, everyone who's attending. I was, like I was saying earlier, I was really impressed with the people that are on this call. So I really appreciate your time. We're going to be going through talking about the reconciliation process, and so the format for today's webinar is I'm going to spend about 5 minutes just giving an overview, and then we're going to be doing, Casey's going to give a demo of some actual software, so we can do a live demonstration of automation around the reconciliation process. So one of the things I encourage you to do throughout is if you have any questions, you do not have to wait until the end. You can ask those questions anytime. And if I am talking, Casey will interrupt me with your question, and then vice versa. If Casey's giving a presentation, I'll be watching that. And so I definitely encourage you to do that. It's not disruptive at all, and especially if it adds some more color to our presentation. So I'm Joe Pitch, the founder and CEO of Bionic. So first of all, I thought before we got into the new way, I thought we should talk about the old way of doing reconciliations and the way that reconciliations are done at a lot of agencies today. And so what happens is the vendor, so the vendor is a media vendor. They've delivered some media on behalf of your client, and now they want to get paid, right? And so what they'll do is they'll send a bill to the agency. Oftentimes this bill goes to the finance department. After the finance department looks at that and just verifies that they haven't already received the bill, what they'll do is send it over to the media team to validate and reconcile that invoice. The first thing the media team will do is look at the invoice and make sure that it's related to an order that they actually placed. So is this a valid invoice? Is it priced correctly? Things like that. The second question is, did they deliver what they promised? And so at that point, they're going to request performance data. That request may go over to the analytics team, who in turn runs a report on performance. So this might be delivery of impressions, clicks, however that invoice is priced. That performance report comes back to the media team, who then goes into a process of doing a reconciliation. So they take all the factors, what did we order? What did they deliver? Was this price right? And reconcile the invoice. And oftentimes the invoice is not correctly presented. And so they need to make adjustments to say, yes, they asked us for this much, but we're only going to pay that much because of what they delivered. So that adjusted or reconciled bill goes over to the finance team, who in turn enters that reconciled or adjusted invoice into the finance system to be paid. Meanwhile, maybe days or weeks have passed, and the vendor wants to know about the payment. So they contact their immediate contact and say, hey, what's up with this invoice? Because the media team doesn't have direct access to the finance system, they don't know. So they contact the finance department and say, hey, what's up with that invoice? Finance team gets back to them with the status, and they respond to the vendors, like, by the way, it's been reconciled, but it's not been paid yet. At some point later, the finance team goes and actually pays the bill, and then delivers the payment to the vendor. And so this is you can see there's a lot of handoffs and back and forth that happens throughout this process. All in all, this is typically, like here is a 15-step process going from start to finish. And it's one of the things that I guess when we talk to agencies, it's one of the things that they hate the most. It's just a very time-consuming task. It's error-prone. It's something that you need to get just right. Sometimes you're operating on incomplete information. And I would just say it just generally causes unhappiness at a lot of agencies. And so, we all think, there's got to be a better way. We're using these computers here. Like, how can we make this better? And so imagine, if you will, if you could just wave a magic wand and get all the information you need when you receive the invoice. So here I'm receiving an invoice. I'm just going to mark this up here. So, it's an invoice 2801. It's got, bill date and a due date. in an amount of 79,000 some odd dollars. And so that's what the vendor is asking for. But then down below here, you can see there's a reconciliation section that is showing us, here's how much we ordered, here's what was reconciled, how much is remaining in the order, what was fulfilled in this service period, what is fulfilled but unbilled, what's ordered in this service period, and then what we do here is to figure out what's the maximum billable amount based on all these factors, and then we can go and reconcile that. So if you look at that, if you have this, this magic tool available, you can eliminate a lot of these steps. In fact, you can eliminate 10 of these steps and eliminate all the mistakes associated with those steps. And you can really compress this process down so that, essentially the bill comes in and it's immediately reconciled and, goes right into the finance system without any human intervention. And so, comparing that to the old process, so you go from a 15-step process down to, a quick 5-step process. And then you can decide, you don't have to pay right away, but if you want to, you could even compress the payment timeframes as well. So, if you think about this, what's the key to all of this? So what's the situation in a lot of agencies is that there's data scattered around. So you've got media plans in one place. They might even be in Excel spreadsheets. IOs might be in a different system. Performance data is in a third system. And then the bills and payments are in a fourth system, usually, whatever you're using for finance. And so the real key is to centralize all of this information, to bring it all together in one place, so then you can, if you have all the data together, you can achieve that magic reconciliation because you can do all these calculations. And that's exactly what Bionic can do for you. And I guess at this point, I'll turn it over to Casey to show you a real quick demo of this process in action.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I will go ahead and share my screen. Give me 1 second. There we go. Can you see that okay, Joe?
Yep. Yeah, looks great.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you guys all for taking some time out here. So today I'm going to walk you through this whole reconciliation workflow. The process starts with an order. So you'll have a media plan to which you have created orders, to which you sent those off to the vendors. Things start running. Those orders will contain the placements, which define, ultimately what you ordered. And then, that process, it starts running and goes through that. Then once those run, you have finance, the financials need to be handled. So that's where we're going to pick this up. Within any given order here, I'm going to go ahead into an order, have all those details. We're going to go into the finance section. So what it does here is it takes those line items that are within this order and breaks them down into the various service periods. So that way, what you end up seeing very quickly, easily, is what you ordered for each service period. Now, things are running, you have performance data coming in, you'll be able to see very quickly what's been fulfilled. So time goes on, you get an invoice from the vendor. When you receive that invoice, you see I have an invoice here. That goes to someone who then can just go ahead and put this right into Bionic. When we click on this Add Bill button, that will give us the ability to input all of that information. So here, the invoice I just showed you, we've got invoice number 5801. We have a bill date of December 7th. We have a due date of January 6th. And then we have a bill amount of $97578.34. You can do copy and paste from here too as well, which makes life easy. Now, where this is really helpful, you'll notice all of this comes right in, all of these calculated fields. So we know the total of what got ordered. We know what previously got reconciled here. Let me move this down so we can actually look in comparison. So you'll see October things have run. So we can see, what got billed, what got reconciled in the balance, and what got paid. So here we can see that previously reconciled balance of the 63,179. The difference between what's been ordered and what's been reconciled will be the 124. And then it will go down and identify, what's been fulfilled through the service period, and you'll see that that aligns with this fulfilled total here. Okay, we see what's been fulfilled but unbilled. So it auto calculates for you, and then you'll see what actually got ordered within the service period. So that's for this November service period here. We've got the 61,141. Now, based on that, we've got, you can see the bill amount is the 79. What we actually ordered was 61,000. So that ends up being our maximum billable amount. If they under delivered and that amount of the invoice is lower, then that would come in automatically. So ultimately, you end up having this reconciled amount automatically populated of the 61,000. Now, the nice thing is here is, regardless of what we automatically populate, you can change that amount. So where we've got, the invoice for the 79, you may end up being in a situation where you're just paying the 61, or maybe you need to adjust this to the invoice amount, or maybe you come up with something in between. Okay, so in this, right, we then go ahead and click create. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Anything more before that you want to add, Joe, before I leave this page?
Not at this point. I do have a couple things to come back to later.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't want to throw you off your flow
Nope,
here.
you're fine.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create this. Okay, so you'll see in doing that, it automatically populates all of the pieces, right? We know we then have a balance due. Now, here's where some magic happens. We now have this integration with QuickBooks Online. So I'll go ahead and show you that. So I have this bill I just created in Bionic. I'm going to jump over to QuickBooks Online, and I'm going to look for Waystar, which is the vendor I was working with. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click in there. Okay, and okay, where am I missing, Joe? There we go. It's that one right there. So we have this bill that I just created in Bionic, now automatically in QuickBooks. Okay, so I can go ahead and pull this up. Oh, let's see, there we go. Internet's a little slow, I think. Okay, so we have all of those details I filled in, the invoice number and all the dates. I have my integration set up, so everything's going in within the item section. I have it set up as media, and the description is all coming in here. We've got the amount, so everything automatically fills in. The other thing that you'll notice that it records is this was created in Bionic and reconciled by Piper, who is the user I'm logged in under, on December 16th. So it's logging all of that information. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'll close out of that. Let me just go back. I'm not getting QuickBooks, so bear with me. Go here. So now when I go to pay my bills here, we've got Waystar. I can go ahead and, as the finance person, I'm in here, I see that I've got payment to make. I can go ahead and make a payment, right? And I can determine, what I want to pay. I could pay both of them or one of them or whatever. Joe, is it okay to pay both of those for this? Okay. So yeah, so then you can see it has the check number, and you can change that as needed. Go ahead, save and close. I now have a payment created against that. Right. Now, when I go back into Bionic, I update my finance screen. We now have that payment recorded in in this area here. So, and we can even click into it and you'll see the check number and what it paid. Great. Now, I will just point out real quick, there is a requirement, as I mentioned, where you will be using orders. This is what pulls it together. This is what tells it what placements to use. You do not necessarily need to use all of the functionality of an order. You don't necessarily have to go through the approvals and vendor acceptance and all of that. The other thing you did not necessarily need to use is the performance data, but that obviously is what ends up giving you what your reconciled amount should be. So very flexible in how this can be used. And then when you add that layer of the QuickBooks integration, it can automate that entire back and forth with your finance system. Great. Joe, are there any questions?
There is, but I wanted to point something out.
Sure.
I was actually reading some of this. I apologize if you just answered this, but you had said before about the ordering. So if you could go actually close this window, Casey, and which is, so here are the orders related to this media plan. So you had said earlier, you can use these orders and send them off to the vendors. So that's certainly, if you are doing direct orders, like that's a great thing to do because you can automate that whole ordering process too, which is probably a subject of another webinar. But one thing I wanted to point out is that even if you're using programmatic advertising or some other kind of advertising where you're on a platform and there's no IOs, you still want to actually create orders. You're probably not sending them off to the vendor. So if say it's Facebook, you're not going to send it to Facebook, but the benefit of creating orders within Bionic is it does that breakdown that Casey showed you earlier, where it'll break down that order into the month-by-month amounts. And so it'll do all that math for you so that when the fulfillment starts coming in, you'll be able to compare the fulfillment to what was ordered. And then finally, when the bill comes in, you can compare the bill to the order amount and the fulfillment amount and do all that magic with the reconciliations. So I'd say the ordering tool is pretty powerful, and it also is again very automated. So you just click a button, say create orders, and Bionic will create them all and do all your math for you. So I do have a couple of questions here, Casey. So the first question I think I can answer. This is a question from an anonymous attendee. How would this work if an agency does not have QuickBooks? And they say we have Intact and Nexonia. So this, even though we showed you this demonstration with QuickBooks, and it is a nice integration, this is not limited to QuickBooks. We have other integrations either in place or in the works, and we'd be happy to work with you to talk about your specific situation. And I'm not familiar with Nexonia, but I am familiar with Intact, so we can talk about that offline. And so I answered that. There's another question here from Tara. If a vendor has fees on top of the media costs, are we able to account for that anywhere in the media plan? And Tara, the answer to that, I'll answer that one too, Casey. The answer to that is yes. In your media plan, you can specify any number of costs. So there's the base net media cost, plus you can add additional costs on top of that. So like say if it's print, there might be color charges, or if it's programmatic, there might be like a fee for the DSP. And so those can be included in your media plan. Okay, so answer that one. So Kurt is asking, is this going to be recorded? And yes, it is actually being recorded right now. And another question, I'm reading this on the fly, Kurt, so will you elaborate on how Bionic tracks fulfillment? Is that automatic, or does someone need to update manually in order to facilitate the reconciliation? So Casey, I'll let you answer that one. I can help if you want, but I just need a break.
Yeah. Too many questions, Joe.
No, these are great questions.
They are good.
Yeah, keep them coming.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
So Kurt, so this with the fulfillment, that is where we can connect with the various platforms that you are working with to be able to have performance data, all those metrics that you're tracking, come back into the Bionic platform. So whether it's Facebook or DCM or any Google platform, there's a whole slew of platforms that we can connect with directly. And we also have ways to where, if you're getting it site served or other such place where there's nothing to connect to, we do have methods for uploading results as well. So you can get that in there, and that will all convey over to this.
Yeah, just
And I'd be happy to help. And I would say, just in general, I would be more than happy to help anybody. You can contact me or support or your CSM with any piece of this. If you need to sort of build out, using the performance data, or, start using orders, or want to work with the QuickBooks integration, or any other finance platform, we can talk to you about that directly and talk about your specific situation.
Right. Yeah, I want to say that we integrate with about 50 different systems to pull in performance data. And it's really pretty much all the popular platforms. So like, anything, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, the popular ad serving platforms. So DCM or whatever they're calling it. I get confused with the names sometimes because they change. But Google's ad servers. Let's see. Just different kinds of platforms. Different DSPs. So like the Trade Desk, others. Really, anything that's out there that's raw data, we'd like to get it in here for you. And so when we bring on clients, one of the first questions we ask are, what systems are you using? We'll run an audit, make sure that we have the right connections. And if we don't, we'll put that in place for you. Of course, that's contingent on, the other system being able to provide data. But nowadays, any modern system should be able to do that. But yeah, it's a really powerful tool that's used obviously here in the case of reconciliations, but more on a day-to-day basis as well, in just monitoring your performance against your KPIs. So it really has a couple different applications here.
Okay, great. I can read that one for you, Joe. This is from Paul. It looks like there are $15,000 there combined with October and November that was invoiced by the vendor but not reconciled. What happens to that amount, and can you reconcile from other months if needed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when you go ahead and add that bill, click that add bill button, Casey, you'll notice that those amounts roll forward, Paul. So the any amounts that were, so that's the fulfilled but unbilled is one of the key ones, and also the remaining order. So we've got kind of a couple different factors going on in this December bill. Is like, what was in this period, how much is remaining in the order, and what was fulfilled but unbilled. In this, case, we don't have the fulfillment data for December, so that's a little bit light because we're in the middle of December right now. But it does get rolled forward automatically. I hope I answered your question there, Paul. And I think we're getting caught up on. Yep. Oops.
Yeah, I think we got through. Yeah.
Other questions here? I'm just going to clean this up a little bit, Casey. It's kind of up sometimes.
Okay, Eve. Yeah, so Eve was just pointing out that there is a place to add a document, and that is true. So you can go ahead and add a document. So you could add any type of document that you want. So if you want to upload that invoice, you could do that, or anything else. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you've got that invoice there from Waystar in the third tab. So you don't have to do it here, Casey, but this is a PDF, and this is a perfect example where you would want to take this invoice and actually upload it to the order. So it's really any electronic document, and the PDF is probably the one that would be most common in this case. Okay. Other questions? All right.
Wonderful.
Good. We're right on schedule, Casey.
We are.
Yeah. So since there's no other questions in here, I do have a question for you, Casey.
Okay.
So we covered a bunch of things here. So we didn't really talk about how to create orders. We didn't really talk about how to get the performance data in. We just, kind of talked about it generally, but we didn't, it would be just too much for this webinar.
How to set up the QuickBooks integration, all of those pieces. Absolutely.
Right. So how, if I'm a Bionic customer, how would they get help with any of these or all of these? Yeah,
absolutely. So there's a few things. You can reach out to us. So whether that's myself or there's a chat function, usually this will say chat with us, or leave a message, even if it says leave a message, we will get right back to you. You can reach out to your CSM, or you can email support@bionic-ads.com. Any of those ways, you can, reach out to us, let us know what you need, and we'd be happy to walk you through any pieces of this. We can set up trainings to walk through bigger pieces, or if you just want to, have some quick support help, we can do that too. So I'm more than happy to do that.
Thanks, Casey. That sounds good. We don't have any other questions, so I guess I'll just wrap up here. Just thank you very much for your attention today. If we could, I hope this is helpful, and we'd love to get this in place for you if you're using Bionic. If you're not already using Bionic, you can go to our website and sign up for a trial through there, and we're happy to get you started with some samples to see if this will work for you. I know this issue with reconciliations is, something that is difficult for a lot of agencies, and, we're happy to be able to help you to streamline this process. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, and have a great holiday, everyone.
Thanks, Casey.
Okay. Bye.